So I thought I would take a moment and give you guys a quick response to the first Democratic debates hosted by CNN and just give you guys a general impression of the debates. This isn't going to be like an in-depth analysis or anything like that. I may do that at some point, and so this might be just kind of a placeholder video until then. It's not up to me, but I'll likely be on a stream tomorrow dealing with that issue, and I'll see then if I really want to do a full response to the debate, because it was very fast. If you actually watched it, CNN really kind of held a tight leash because I think they were afraid that other candidates, honestly, were going to get a chance to respond. It's pretty clear that CNN started from the position that this was going to be the night of Sanders versus Hillary, and occasionally Martin O'Malley gets to talk, and then they completely shut out Jim Webb. I would have to go through and actually see how many questions they gave to each candidate and blocked him out of, but there were several issues that it was very clear that they completely shut out Jim Webb. They never asked him about that, and one of the questions they asked him about, which I believe was on energy, he couldn't have given a weaker answer and a more counterproductive answer, which was that he both is pro-coal, not even natural gas, I think he said pro-oil as well, and very, according to his own words, very pro-nuclear, which, speaking as my own person here, I'm not against nuclear energy, but it's not popular among Democrats. It's just not. Nuclear energy is very unpopular with Democrats. I don't even know if it's popular with Republicans or even moderates. I don't know who thinks that nuclear energy is a good idea outside of the occasional person, such as myself, who is not necessarily in support of it, but is open to the use. It isn't even a matter of me being necessarily on that side or that reactionary to the issue, but Jim Webb walked right into a trap, and I think that that's really going to hinder him. I think that the stupid quip he gave about killing some Vietnamese person during the war, that was retarded. Bragging constantly about being a Marine, I don't know whose party he thinks he's running in. You can mention that you're a Marine. People are going to honor your service. That's totally fine. But the fact that he kept bringing it up over and over, that his son's a Marine, that, he's affiliated with the military, he worked for the Defense Department. Okay, you worked for the Defense Department. How many Democrats are walking around talking about how great the Defense Department is, dude? What fucking planet are you on where this is going to do well with Democrats? It really isn't. So, despite the fact that Jim Webb had very little time given to him, he fell on his face on several issues. And I think that, not even just from my own perspective, but as a perspective of someone trying to look at this debate, I think that Jim Webb probably did the worst substantively in terms of how he reacted to questions that, would play to the Democratic Party. Next to him, you have Lincoln Chafee, who was so mealy-mouthed, was so much of a peacenik. What made him exceptional? There was nothing about his proposals and his arguments that made him stand out in any way. And like I said in the original video that I did talking about him, about when he was on Bill Maher, he's just too mealy-mouthed. He's just too much of a bore. He's too much of a fucking liberal pussy that I don't think that it's appealing to anyone. He's going to have some people that like him that are progressives, that are the peaceniks, that, what they like him for whatever reason. But the dude used to be a Republican, and he seems cynical about it. He seems like he doesn't want to address it. And he had that major gaffe where I think it was on the Patriot Act. I think it was that, and they asked him why he voted for it, and he just went like, "Oh, well, I just got into Congress," and everyone in the whole fucking room, everyone, including everyone from CNN, just looked at him like, "Oh, okay, that's not an excuse. You were new to Congress, what?" I think he thought that was a legitimate answer, and that blew up in his face completely. So that both of them are tied for last because of just gaffes and just not being in line of where the party wants them to be. If the guy actually confronted the fact that he voted for the Patriot Act and was very crystal clear as to why he did that, and distance the fact that he used to be a Republican and say, you know, he had one line that the party left me. Well, expand on that. Expand on how you left the party and how you found that the Democratic Party was actually going in line with what's consistent with your principles. Like, there's ways to avoid the fact that you used to be a Republican, and there's ways to separate yourself as being, you know, a guy that has experience on both sides of the aisle, and, you know, I have confirmed principles. And he had this line like, I'm a very ethical man or some shit like that, and it just bored me. I sat there listening to that, and I said, you know, that doesn't appeal to anyone. They don't care whether you're ethical or not. They care about what you're going to do. They care about how you think on these issues and where you're coming from. Saying that you are ethical is just a platitude. It's just saying, I'm this. Well, no, what do you stand by? Prove that you're that thing. So I think that stupid line he kept giving is going to blow up in his face, and that's why I listed him for dead last, was several bad responses and just being mealy-mouthed, being the liberal pussy that he is. It's just, it doesn't appeal to anyone. Martin O'Malley, I would say, comes in third pretty strongly in comparison to the other two people that were gaff-laden and couldn't go anywhere, just, you know, spinning their tires. Martin O'Malley gave a few good responses. He had a couple one-liners that were pretty solid. He gave very long, sort of preachy explanations to his positions on a few cases that did contrast in comparison to Sanders and Clinton. So I would say that based on the fact that O'Malley could distinguish himself from the two lead candidates and managed to in some way actually, you know, wedge himself a little bit into the fight that was Sanders versus Hillary, he actually got himself some attention from the audience. He got some applause. He got some pauses to where people were cheering for him, and the camera pans back and, you know, you listen to people cheering. And I think that that's important for him to distinguish himself. It's important for him, for people to remember his name, know who he is, recognize his face. And I think that the result of this debate is going to be him actually gaining some points. I think he's actually going to go up in the polls. Not by much, but I do think he's going to gain a little bit of ground here. Far off from him in second place is Hillary Clinton, who waffled at several points on the email issue she waffled on. It was a little bit weird, too, because I thought she'd actually be more prepped for that, but she waffled on that a little bit. She waffled on Snowden and national security and war and a bunch of other issues because, for the most part, as I kept tweeting out, no one trusts her. No one believes a fucking word she's saying about the issues where she voted for Iraq. She voted for Patriot Act. She voted for all these different things. She was in favor of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. She was against gay marriage. She was against all this fucking shit. But she thinks that just because she won the debate on gun rights, even afterwards, CNN kept talking about that as if it meant a shit, that Sanders looked weak on that particular issue, and that she did gain a few points, in my opinion, in terms of style, by winning out on being, you know, less of a civil libertarian when it comes to firearm ownership. They might like you, but they don't fucking believe you. And that's case closed, whether they believe you're going to do jack shit about education or Wall Street or anything else. It's what's dogging her in this entire fucking thing is the fact that no one fucking believes her. No one. If you're a Republican listening to this, or a conservative, do you fucking believe her? If you consider yourself a moderate, do you believe her? If you are left-leaning, do you believe her? If you are a staunch Democratic supporter, do you fucking believe a word that comes out of her mouth related to Wall Street, related to economics, related to national security? Do you believe fucking anything that she's changed her mind on in the last 2 months? Do you believe her in any way? And the answer is no. She might have won out by invoking God and talking about how she's a woman. You know, my gender politics, my identity politics, as if that means shit in the long run. She won some fucking points there. But ultimately, we get to the last part of this, which is the fact that Sanders hit what he wanted to hit. He wanted to hijack the debate and make it about his platform. And he did it. There was about 4 or 5 instances where he completely hijacked what was being talked about and gave his fucking spiel on economic inequality. He completely hijacked the topic at hand to do that. And that's what the fucking base wants to hear. That's what his supporters want to hear. That's what everyone wants to hear, including Republicans, including people that might be moderates. They want to hear about how they're being fucked by special interests in the rich, because that's what many people are concerned with, especially in the fucking working class. But with that racist fucker that said, do you believe that Black Lives Matter or that all lives matter. They talked about how no one made any racist comments during the debate. No, that's a racist comment. That guy was a fucking racist. That was his whole point, was to say, are you focused on all lives or are you focused on black lives in particular? That's a racist fucking sentiment. You know, I get it. I'm against mass incarceration. I'm against the fucking drug war. So is pretty much every fucking person on the stage, except for Hillary Clinton, who's probably lying about it. That it wasn't just sort of identity politics. It went beyond that. And every single person on that fucking stage catered and pandered to that fucking question. The answers were actually pretty decent. They avoided the fucking fact that that fucking kid was a racist. They avoided that because they didn't want to step on that landmine, thankfully. But the fact remains is that they pandered to that shit for 10 minutes, but I didn't hear one fucking word about the working class, other than Bernie Sanders giving his spiel. I forget who said it, and I gave this person a lot of credit, that they said that right now, and it might have been Sanders, I might be wrong in this, they said that right now in the United States, a college degree is the same as a high school degree used to be. And that's not actually true. Like, I have a 4-year degree right now, including a 2-year associate's in another field. I can't find a fucking job. I can't find fucking anything in my field. I can't find an entry-level fucking position in my area. I'd have to fucking move to get a job in my field. Otherwise, I'm just looking for anything I can. And that's a working class issue. That is a fucking problem with being a graduate, in debt, tens of thousands in debt. And that was another thing that I didn't hear about. I didn't hear about the fact that I'm in fucking debt. I didn't hear about that fucking issue that hundreds of thousands, if not millions of fucking people that are my age are dealing with right fucking now. We're dealing with that fucking issue. I didn't hear anything about that. You're some middle-class cunt that can rely on your family to feed you and all that bullshit, and you don't have to have a job. Well, for those of us that are working class, that need a job, that are looking for actual better employment to actually have as a result of getting a fucking degree. For those of us that would like to have better employment, that's an issue we're concerned with. That's the real reason I don't think that Sanders really pulled ahead in that way, was because he dropped the ball in several places where you could have actually done better with the base. He could have done better with most Americans, but he didn't do that. He gave his spiel, and it was solid. And I think that, again, him hijacking the several topics to give his argument, to give his platform, was the strongest thing that a candidate could do. And Martin O'Malley tried that a couple times. He only did it, a few times where he actually succeeded. But in my opinion, it just seems to me that while Sanders did win this debate, in my opinion, I don't think it was by much. I think that Hillary Clinton was right behind him. But I would just say that I think, generally speaking, some of the issues that could have been touched on more were avoided. And I think that really CNN comes into play there to what the questions are being asked. Although, again, you can answer however you fucking want to in these things. But I just think that the performance overall was solid, and I think that there's going to be too much emphasis on certain points, such as when Sanders said those damn emails, like that's going to be a big fucking meme. The fight over gun control, which was very early on. I think there's going to be too much focus on the wrong areas, whereas I would say, there was too much insistence on identity politics. You saw at several points, especially with Clinton invoking God, invoking women, invoking several other things that dealt with identity politics. Martin O'Malley did the same thing. Even Sanders went as far to do that as well. That isn't going to work with everybody. It's not substantive enough to where I think that it's going to really net them the points that they want. I'll be very curious to see where the polls go after this first debate. But my assumption would be, my prediction anyways, would be that Hillary doesn't gain points back, but she does stay fairly consistent, or her losses slow down. I do think that Bernie Sanders is going to gain a few points in a few different polls, especially in terms of name recognition and that. I think that Martin O'Malley is going to gain in the polls by like some negligible amount, 5% and less in polls. I would say he'd be lucky if he got 2 to 3%. I'm giving him 5 just to make it within the fucking margins of error. But Webb and Chafee are cooked. They might as well not show up for the rest of the debates. They're done. Like, they are fucking done. They got nowhere to fucking go but down. And I don't see them recovering the slightest from where they are now. And that's my opinion. Tell me what you think.